Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulihil Kareem. Wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Jazakumullah khairan everyone for coming. Instead of our normal traditional Saturday halaqah today, it's going to be a slightly different format, and hopefully inshallah it'll be interesting. So before we actually start, I'm going to hand it over to Brother Said, who's going to recite some verses from the Quran.
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولتكن منكم أمة يدعون إلى الخير ويأمرون بالمعروف وينهون عن المنكر وأولئك هم المفلحون. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. ادعوا إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن إن ربك هو أعلم بمن ضل عن سبيله وهو أعلم بالمهتدين.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum. I'm just going to read the translations of the verses the brothers just read out. First verse was Surah Al-Imran, verse 104. Let there arise out of you a band of people, inviting to all that is good, who encourage the good and forbid the evil. These are the ones who will prosper. In another verse, Surah Al-Anfal, verse 125. Call people to the path of your Lord with wisdom and inspiring speech. Reason with them in a superior and respectful manner. Certainly your Lord knows best who's stray from his path and who is guided. Today's halaqah is based on the topic of dawah. And before I go into the actual setup of today, I just would like to know, does anybody know the actual linguistic term of dawah? What does it mean? Anybody from the crowd? Anybody?
Call someone.
Yeah, exactly. Linguistically, it means to call people, call or invite. But more importantly for us as Muslims, in the Sharia of Allah, it means calling to Islam, whether it be Muslim or non-Muslims. In these two verses that we recited, there's a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Clearly it's indicated that dawah, or calling people to Islam, is an obligation. Man or woman, it should be an integral part of our life. Now, this dawah is considered, at times, people take it to be something very strenuous or a great task. However, it shouldn't be the case. What it should be is part of your life. It should be a responsibility and a duty, and we should be proud of sharing our religion with others. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has guided us, and we should wish that for all of humanity. For that reason, the Redbridge Islamic Centre has set up a dawah team. Now that dawah team consists of volunteers, brothers from the masjid, who are actively involved in dawah behind the scenes. So at times you may not be so obvious to you guys here. So that's the purpose of this halaqah today, is to highlight what they have done in the recent past and maybe what we should be doing as individuals. Now, before I go into that, there is a hadith of our Prophet ﷺ in Sahih al-Bukhari which says, convey this message, even if it's one ayah. Learn the prerequisites of your religion and Quran and teach others. Verily, surely I will not be around forever. So it is clear it's an obligation. Some scholars go to the view that living in a non-Muslim land is only allowed, a haram otherwise only allowed. Some scholars say that, unless you have the intention of giving dawah to non-Muslims. Now, we all can take part in this, and inshallah the aim of this talk is, at the end of this, that we take some steps towards inviting people to Islam. Now, as RIC's view was that we set up this outreach team, that it's in the form of a Dawah Stall which takes place Ilford High Road, and it takes place every Saturdays for 2 hours, where the brothers on a rota basis invite people or display various materials so people can approach and they can guide them to Islam. Our main aim of this stall was to attract people or invite people to Islam, and the aim of that and how we aim to achieve this was first and foremost was inviting towards Tawheed. And once that message is delivered, we went on to the Risalah, the Prophet ﷺ, and then the Quran. And basically, and to Muslims themselves, we have been involved in some dawah here, where we're there to clear any misconceptions people may have. I'm going to hand over to my brother here, who's going to actually go through the structure of the actual dawah team and how it operates. But just keep in mind the word dawah and what each and one of us are doing or should be doing. Jazakallah khair for your
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Jazakumullah khairan, Imran. He forgot to mention that he's actually overrunning, he's running the whole sort of thing. He's actually the Emir. So, mashallah, there's many brothers involved, but just to mention that. I'm going to go into some of the behind-the-scenes things that actually had to go on in the beginning. He mentioned in some detail the aims and objectives of the Dawah Stall. What we wanted to do was, before actually going in there and setting up the table and actually talking to people, we wanted to actually have that vision of calling people to Islam, and these are our objectives, so that whenever we go out there, we actually remember to bring it back to these things rather than get diverted into perhaps more political topics. I'm actually blocking the slides here. I'll move to the side a little bit. Is that okay? Okay, next slide. Okay, so I'm actually going to talk about the process that went on behind the scenes. Right, okay, so we started off by saying we need policies and procedures. I mean, the basic aim of this was we wanted to have some sort of accountability, because it's only when we're actually held accountable that we realize what our mistakes are, what our good points are, so we can actually hone things and actually progress from there. Now, within the policies and procedures, we had to think about, obviously sticking to council regulations and national laws, things like that. Hopefully, inshallah, people don't want to, get up there and break the law anyway. So, but obviously, we had to have that in there. Apart from that, they're just professional responsibilities that we require everyone who's there to actually abide by. Number one, we have to make sure that we always bring it back to the main aim, which is to call people to Allah, call people to the Prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, also to clear up misconceptions, and also act as an information point as well, because obviously there are many Muslims who pass who might want to know, for example, if they're new to the area, where is the halal meat or something like that. Could you go back? Okay, and also we wanted to address the issue of logistics and things like that. Perhaps one of the most important things was the general etiquettes as to how we would actually conduct ourselves. So that would include how we present ourselves to the public. It would include ways in which to actually engage with people. So obviously we didn't want to go down the route of, endless bickering and arguing about something, and obviously physical violence is completely off the table. And apart from that, we wanted to have regular training in Dawah every 6 months, inshallah. Jamil? Okay, before we start, we actually have an induction procedure in which everyone who wants to actually go out there has to know all of these rules and regulations. So it's something that takes half an hour. And inshallah, something that we're going to start soon is actually to have an informal contract as well. And the way that it is, it's, I think Imran mistakenly said Saturday, it's actually Sunday between 12 till 2. And that's in a particular location on the high road, just towards the McDonald's. At the moment, there are 15 people who volunteered their time. There's only 3 people at a time. So obviously every team of 3 will, on average, come back every 5 weeks. So it's only once every 5 weeks that everyone's time is required. However, there's flexibility. Obviously, people might have emergencies they need to attend to. So, people swap between themselves. Also, at the same time, something that we started from last week is to actually have a feedback process. So we've actually produced some feedback forms. And the purpose of this is to actually get us to reflect on how that particular day went. And actually, I'm sure many of you who've spoken to non-Muslims in any, in any type of, in any shape or fashion, will know that often when you're speaking to them, afterwards, after an hour or maybe after a day, you start to think, oh, I should have mentioned this point. There's always something that you remember afterwards. So what we wanted to do was to actually sit down and actually think about anything that we could do better for next time, and actually have it in a log for the next time we're actually there, and also to provide information For the next team, just for example, if there are any loose ends that need tying up, if someone needs a copy of the Quran, we ran out last week, just to remind them that they need to keep a copy there. And also, just to monitor long-term progress, we're going to have statistics in there, how many people we actually speak to. So after a year, we're going to see what the progress is, whether we're actually getting to speak to more people than before. And that's just a copy of the, obviously you can't see it very well, but that's the feedback form. What we're going to do now is, I'm just going to invite a few brothers up who've actually volunteered, and they're just going to speak very, very briefly about one experience they've had.